This podcast is hosted on podhome.fm, the most modern podcast hosting platform. Podhome offers unlimited episodes and podcasts, and unlimited use of Podhome AI, which generates transcripts, clips, chapters, title suggestions, show notes, and much more. And all of that for just $15.99 a month or $185 per year. That's a steal. So go to podhome.fm and start your 30-day trial now. And enjoy the show with Joe.
Transmitting live from the Asylum Studios, deep in the bowels of Southwest Texas. It's the Joe Rooz Show. The show where we talk about anything and everything. Where nothing is sacred, nothing is watered down, and nothing is PC.
All righty. Hey, folks, it is Tuesday, the 21st of April, 2026. I am Joe Rooz, and it is great to be with you once again, transmitting live at the Asylum, and of course, as always, doing the very best we can to bring you the best quality talk radio we could muster without all the bluster. Welcome to the Joe Rooz Show. All right, well, a rare on-time start for us. Nah, it's not too bad. Usually it's around this time frame. We're pretty good. Folks, it really is great to be with you again. It's, again, a beautiful, overcast, rainy, cool evening here in the desert. And, you know, we had such a great time last night with J.M. Shaw. Hope you guys were able to catch that show. A lot of fun. She has a great personality, great sense of humor, and she was willing to put up with my BS off the air. So we got some really interesting conversation. A lot of fun. Good sport. Very good sport. And tonight we have a really great guest lined up, and I was looking forward to talking to him when we first made our connection, because he writes about something that I love, science fiction. I'm a science fiction guy. And, he writes a series that, well, let me put it to you this way. Or I'll pose it to you this way. What if the most famous alien invasion stories ever written wasn't really about aliens? What do you think of that? Because tonight we're going to be talking to a sci-fi author who says War of the Worlds is actually about power, fear, and how governments respond when everything goes sideways. This is one of those conversations where fiction starts sounding a little bit too real. But of course, before we get into all of that, we're going to take care of some of our housekeeping. All right, so if you would, please make sure you head over to our website, joerooz.com. That's joerooz.com. And when you get over there, please open up that contact form, send us over a message. Let us know whatever's on your heart, whatever's on your mind, any questions, comments, cares, or concerns that you might have. Maybe you have a complaint. You really shouldn't have any complaints at all, but you might. You can send it to us there, and we'll take the appropriate action on those complaints, of course, as always. Circular file. And then maybe you have a suggestion for a guest, or maybe you have a topic you'd like us to discuss on the show. We would be happy to take a look at those things and see how we could accommodate that. Also, if you're like me in any way, you don't like to use the web forms, mostly because of the stupid caption nonsense. But if you don't like to use the web form, you could always email me directly at info@joerooz.com. That's info@joerooz.com. And then also, another great idea is you could actually use the comment section down there below on Rumble. And, of course, if you must be on YouTube, you can do it on YouTube as well. No matter how you do it, we will make sure we get to it, and we will respond appropriately. All right. Also, please don't forget that this is a live show, weeknights, 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Had to think for a second. Sorry, a little brain freeze. And don't forget also about our every other Saturday cryptocurrency show with our resident crypto psychic, Marissa Lee. We'll be talking about all things cryptocurrencies this coming Saturday at noon Central Time. It's April the 25th, noon Central. Check it out. A lot of things going on in the crypto world, the crypto markets. Very interesting developments, especially if what I heard about, like I mentioned last night, XRP is true, then I'm really happy. So you want to check that out. And then, of course, our Sunday show, every Sunday at 2 p.m. Central Time, we have our Sunday Bible Study show, which we're going through the book of Revelation right now. We finished Revelation 7 this past Sunday, that parenthetical chapter between the 6th and the 7th seals. And 7th seal opens up on chapter 8, so we're going to get into that. It's going to be a really, really interesting show, so please make sure you check that out. And if you need to get caught up, now's the time to do it. Go back and check out the other episodes, get you up to speed as to exactly where we are. And if you have time, go back and listen to the previous series we did on dispensations. Very, very important foundation for what we're doing in Revelation. Okay? Check them out. Also, another very important thing to do is to like, subscribe, and share the show with your friends, your family, and your followers. You got to mess with the algorithm for us because that's how we get found. Since we've been pushing the sharing and liking the show, we've been seeing some boosts in our views. We've been seeing some boosts in the downloads. We've been also seeing some boosts in subscribers and followers here on Rumble. And for God's sake, I don't know why still on YouTube people are still following the show on YouTube. Once we get off YouTube, we're not coming back. So if you're on YouTube, come over to Rumble. It's beautiful here. I'm telling you, it is always a beautiful 72 degrees, blue skies, white billowy clouds. The palm trees sway in the gentle breeze. The water is pure, crystal clear, beautiful, pristine beaches. Gorgeous. Come to Rumble. Rumble.com/Joe Rooz. Check us out over there. All right. So again, don't forget, please like, subscribe, and share the show with your friends, your family, and your followers. All right. Well, tonight's connection is courtesy of Podmatch. Podmatch, Tinder for podcasters. Great platform. Host builds a profile, guest builds a profile, algorithm puts it together, and we get great quality guests. Now, the other great thing with Podmatch is that most podcast hosts and guests spend hours researching connections, coordinating interviews while working on administrative tasks, and only really spending about 10% of their time on what really matters, and that's impactful podcasts for their audience, building those things, running those things. What Podmatch does is it enables the guests and the host to reclaim their time through automations and streamlined processes so that they can focus on creating content that really serves their listeners. Now, you can check out our profile on Podmatch by going to podmatch.com/member/Joe. Link is in the show notes. Check it out. See what Podmatch is all about. And if you are in the market to get into some kind of a guest situation, or maybe you're a host and you're looking for a way to get good quality guests, sign up through our link. And you never know. It might work out for you in a great way, and you might end up being a guest on this show, and we would love that. That would be fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So check it out at podmatch.com/member/Joe. That is podmatch.com/member/Joe. All right. Well, with all of that stuff out of the way, I'd like to welcome our guest to the show tonight. We are joined by Eric Goebelbecker, a science fiction author and with a background that's anything but typical. He's worked on radar systems in the U.S. Army. Thank you again, sir, for your service. He programmed on Wall Street and now writes a continuation of War of the Worlds that digs into power, government, and how societies react when everything kind of goes awry, goes sideways. His work just isn't just about aliens. It's really about us. Eric, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you.
Great to have you here. I was looking forward to this. You know, you write in my favorite genre, which is I really shouldn't say that because I do interview other authors. So I don't want anybody to think I'm playing favorites here, but I love science fiction. How about that? Okay, I'm a science fiction guy. I love science fiction, and War of the Worlds is really one of my favorites. To be honest with you, I remember reading and listening to the War of the Worlds when I was a kid. You know, it just I don't know where my grandfather had it on audio tape. I don't know where he got it from or how he got it, but he had the original Orson Welles audio.
Oh, there's copies floating around, yeah.
Oh, so it was awesome. I was hooked when you first played that. So when I saw your profile and you talking about continuation of the War of the Worlds, and I thought that was a great idea. So I'm really looking forward to get into that here momentarily. But before we get into all the serious stuff here, I do have some icebreaker questions for you. So I'm gonna get ready to throw these your way. And and for the folks that are watching that saw the show last night, I did change the questions. all right, because I'll explain another time, but I had to change the questions. So at any rate, these, sir, are for you. You'll be the first to receive these this
Oh,
week. All right.
I'm a beta
There you
tester.
go. All right, sir. What's a moment recently where you just had to laugh at yourself?
Oh, that's every day. I gotta think for a second here because there's been so many of them. I mean, I'm a dog trainer part time. Actually, that's almost my only job now because my full time job kind of went away. And big thing when you're training at Petco is you got to mop the floor between every class. Got to be sanitary.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very tired Saturday morning, getting ready to do my 10 to 6 on Saturday, and I got to fill up the bucket and all that. And I was in kind of a bad mood. And I managed to pour most of the bucket all over myself and my pants. And I started to, get about 8 feet tall, turn green, bulging muscles. And I just had to stop and laugh at myself. And then one of the teenagers that stocks the shelf saw me and they're like, "Oh my God, the old man went crazy." But that was pretty much it.
Well, that's good though. That's good. I've had moments like that too at my regular job.
You have to stop and go, "You're here getting furious, and in about 10 minutes, they're going to pay you to play with puppies."
Yep.
Honestly, dude,
There you go. Yeah.
calm down.
That's the best way to look at it, my friend. When I
Right.
was back up in New York and I was doing my previous career, that's the way I looked at things too. I mean, I wasn't training dogs, but I was like, I looked around one day. I said, "Do you realize that you are getting paid to be hanging out in this place all day long?"
Right.
And that's what made it. That's what made it somewhat worthwhile, somewhat easy to deal with. But that's a good one. So now, second question for you: if your personality had a warning label, what would it say?
Volatile.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
script these folks.
right. I mean, the temper. There is a Goebelbecker temper that even plays into the first book in the series because the one character is basically my grandfather. And we have tempers, and the solution is to learn how to laugh at yourself and to learn not to take things so seriously. But I will get edgy and angry, and I have to catch myself. And humor is the weapon I use against myself and everybody else. And if you were in the New York area, then you are familiar with the concept of sarcasm.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what we do.
Yes, sir.
Nice driving there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I personally think that sarcasm is probably one of the higher forms of comedy.
Could be, yeah. Yeah.
It's my personal opinion on that. So
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody else has to say.
Some light. Yeah.
But I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. I don't have. I used to have a very volatile attitude and personality, but I don't know. As I got older, I just kind of slowed down with it. I don't let things bother me too much anymore. I just kind of like roll it off my shoulders and say, yeah, whatever, that's your problem, bud.
Right.
I'm not going to deal with it anymore. But I do. But my other real problem is though is that because I don't react anymore, it builds up, and then eventually it's like Vesuvius. It just blows.
Right.
And then God help whoever's in the way when that happens. But I've been pretty good. I've been pretty good. I remember one time I got so aggravated that I didn't know what to do with myself because I was so angry, and it was either hit the person that was standing in front of me or do something else destructive. So what I ended up doing was, and this is in one of my first apartment back home in Brooklyn, and I didn't know what to do. So it was like I said, it was either hit the person in front of me or do something else. So I just looked around, I bent down, I grabbed the brand new carpet that we had just installed, and I ripped the whole carpet up like that, just out of anger. And then the next day, I called the company that did the installation. I said, "Hey, what kind of a shitty job do you guys do? Look, the whole carpet all popped up already. Get over here and fix this thing." "Oh, I'm sorry." They all came over, they fixed it. So it was great. I do not recommend that. Okay?
No.
Okay, do not do that. That's very dishonest. Okay, but I wasn't a Christian then, so it's okay. No, it's still not okay. All right. So what's the most? This easily could have been an email situation that you've been in.
Oh, come on. I worked on Wall Street.
I know. That's why.
God, I have to. I don't know if I could think of one specific instance for that, but the last job I had in the city was actually for a hedge fund. And pretty much everything that boss did could have been an email. We would have daily Oh, no, I'm sorry. Let me back up.
Okay.
When I worked for the New York Stock Exchange, so I was at a small company. I was like a member of a team. There was a couple of us that would go to companies that were in trouble, for various reasons, from being delisted to just being incompetent.
Right.
And we more or less get them into shape, and they would either be able to go back on the market or be sold. And we had gone to one trading firm, got them back up to snuff, and the New York Stock Exchange bought them. That was right around Sandy, too, because I was working for them when they were flooded by Sandy. And
I remember Sandy. Yeah.
Then we got to a point where the New York Stock Exchange was sold to, was that ICE? I think it was ICE, IISE, International Stock Exchange. And as that was going on, if you've ever been in that situation, the politics is just insane. Our regular boss said, forget this, and he left. And there was this guy that took over the team that, like, he could have been in the TV show The Office. And he would have these agonizing meetings every day that could have been an email that was basically him parroting gossip that anybody who used the men's room had already heard.
Nice.
And would just go on and on and on. And he helped me to finally decide I need to find work somewhere else. And I left. But he was a walking, could have been an email. He could have been replaced by a very small shell script that sent a daily email.
Yeah.
He's probably listening. No.
I know what you mean, though. I worked in a situation like that, too, where they actually would have meetings just to have meetings.
Right. Well, the deadliest thing, it's Tim Ferriss, I think, has said this several times. Never go to a meeting that doesn't have an agenda. Because then you can look at the agenda and say, I'm not needed, and not go anyway.
That's why they don't give agendas anymore.
Right, yeah.
That's the way it works.
I don't miss any of this.
No, it's, yeah. I don't blame you, my brother. I don't blame you at all. I would not want to be dealing with that stuff. I don't get to deal with that stuff too much now anyway, but back when I worked for New York City, like I said, we used to have meetings just about having meetings.
Right.
They would call, they would call them, literally, they would call a meeting. All right, so we need to set up a schedule where we have meetings on this particular matter. We got to set this up for Thursday, and I'm like, I have other things I need to be doing right now. I don't just write an email. That's
a project manager. You know what a project manager is? It's somebody who manages to make a project out of anything.
Yes, exactly. Very good. Excellent. All right. Well, sir, I would love to continue on with the icebreaker questions. I did that. We had a guest one time that I asked one icebreaker question out of 3, and that one icebreaker took up 2 hours of the show. So I have a feeling that we can go on and on and on and talk about the nonsensical life of New York City. But let's get into what you're really here for. All right. So you've had a pretty unconventional path. An Army radar tech, a Wall Street guy, a programmer. Now you're a sci-fi author. So kind of walk us through that. Give us the background. How did all that come about?
So I graduated high school back when we rode horses and buggies in 82. And I was not going to make it in college. I knew I was not going to make it in college. And the money really wasn't there anyway. So in a fit of Goebelbecker temper, my father made a comment about, you should go into the Army, make a man out of you, stuff that I identify as Gen X. Gen Xers heard. I'm born right on the cusp there. Mm-hmm. And I went and enlisted. And everybody in my family, like I've mentioned, my grandfather, who come up, was German Army. My father was U.S. Army. My uncle was Band of Brothers, 101st. I joined, and he was horrified, which made me want to go even more. And I went into the military, and I did just short of 7 years. I re-enlisted once, and the way that things lined up, I think it worked out to 7.5 years. And like you mentioned, went to the regional facility where you enlist and they set up what your job's going to be, your MOS. I had wanted to be a mechanic. Mm-hmm. they talked me into radar tech, which is a good thing because I really, looking back, was a terrible mechanic. Now I have a Toyota with a service contract. And I had been into electronics and all that, and I ended up working on the Hawk continuous wave radar repairman, which Hawk was a kind of a antecedent to Patriot. Mm-hmm. And when I was leaving Germany in '89, Patriot was kind of replacing Hawk. Patriot was still anti-aircraft at that point. It wasn't anti-missile. Right. And it was pretty good. I learned a lot. I was a horrible, horrible soldier. Some of that is in my first book too, but I was a decent radar repairman. And when I got out, a friend of mine who I still hang out with, we do long bike trips together, was already working in the city at Reuters. And not in the news area, but if you know anything about Wall Street and financial markets, Reuters has now been bought twice. Reuters was the highest quality data you could get, a lot of technology. They were forerunners, really groundbreaking in tech. Mm-hmm. And after I spent a little bit of time working a couple small companies here in Jersey, he got me into Reuters. And that was the beginning of Wall Street. To give you an idea of where Reuters was this would have been 90, they were deploying Windows 2.0 to trader desktops connected to these massive modem cards, and you could get real-time data on a Windows PC.
Wow.
And I ended up falling in with this friend of mine, and there was another friend of his that became a very good friend of mine. We were basically, I think, was the comment somebody made one time, you're writing checks your body better be able to cash.
Oh, yeah, Top Gun.
I'm
sure it came out. I'm sure somebody else said it before that.
God, I've only seen that movie once, but yeah, you're right. That's a Top Gun quote.
Yeah.
Damn it. Farrell, that was pretty good of him. But we were getting away with stuff with Windows and networking and LANs that like the mothership hadn't blessed. And I really had a great time. And I managed to, and you could get away with this in the early 80s, made myself a programmer. You didn't have to have a degree in like 1993 to say, I program in C, and just go home and read books that weekend and code in C. And that's what I did until COVID, really. Mm-hmm. And I kind of bounced around, some programming work, some system administration work. And in the background, going all the way back to high school, I've wanted to be a writer. And I have a little bit of an inferiority complex with my little sister who has, I don't know, what time is it? 64 novels by now, because I was 63 when I talked to her a couple of minutes ago. But she's been publishing novels 2 or 3 a year for 20 plus years.
Wow.
And in romance. So I'm very nonlinear here, which makes a programmer feel horrible. But at some point, I think it was 2017, 2018, with the beauty of working in New York City. Are you from New York City or just work there? All right. So
born and raised in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn.
Yeah, because you have no accent to me. So I figured you can't be from down there. The public library system is just astounding in New York. That's one of the greatest libraries you could possibly imagine. And when you work in New York, even if you're a bridge and tunnel guy like me, you can get a library card. Mm-hmm. And I started researching my grandfather. So he was drafted into the German army. This I knew. He ended up at the Battle of the Somme, which, if you know World War I history, was one of the bloodiest battles of the war. So like 65,000 British troops killed in the first day. And I have a very, very distant memory of when my mom and dad were both working and my sister hadn't been born yet. My grandparents would babysit me after like first grade, get home. And this funny guy with a funny accent came and interviewed my grandfather, and it turned out he was Martin Middlebrook. I don't have the book out. And he interviewed my grandfather for a book the first day at the Somme, which is a huge book in the UK about the battle. And I
haven't read it. I know the book, but I haven't read it. But yeah, wow. And
then there was this family story about the reason why we are here in the States is he had to flee Germany in 1929 because our little tiny one-horse town, Liedelsheim, was a hotbed of, they weren't calling themselves Nazis quite yet, but the proto-Nazis, let's call them. Okay. And my grandfather was having none of it. They wanted him to support them because he left the Somme a hero.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why he was a hero was he had strung out the radio wires in the trenches, and the British broke through in one place the first day. Guess where it was? Mametz Woods, where the 109th was, and he knew which way to run. That's why he was a hero, because the trenches were mazes, and you had to, he literally was like, guys, this way, and he saved his unit. The proto-Nazis wanted him to support. He's like, you guys are nuts. Mm-hmm. And that was about the extent of his, like, you guys are crazy. He ended up having to flee here. And I heard all these stories. When I got to Germany in 82, I was stationed there for most of my enlistment. That's where my wife is from. I was down in the hometown, and when my one cousin said, this is Emil's grandson, they were like, oh, we're not worthy. And I'm like, I'm the guy going, you mean that story was true? And so anyway, I started researching that because I was going to write about it. And that turned into me writing these books, because when I started to look at everything that I was like, this cannot be my first book. Mm-hmm. I actually still don't know how to tackle this story. Wow. I kind of got diverted there. So when COVID struck, I had a lot of free time because the work I was doing for this hedge fund, once you took away the office and the meetings, was 5-6 hours a day. And here I am sitting behind a computer, and I'm able to research this. And that's when I came up with the idea for these books.
Wow.
Kind of got ahead of myself with the story there, but
yeah, that's fine though.
Yeah,
because it kind of leads into. I was going to ask you, what was, what really pulled you into science fiction?
Well, that's
a genre to write in.
I mean, that's what I've been reading since the dawn of time. My dad was a hardcore science fiction fan. I read Fahrenheit 451 before it was assigned in high school. He had me reading Asimov. He didn't really like Heinlein, but I read some Heinlein. There was no L. Ron Hubbard in my house. Oh my God.
No. No. Let's not go that route.
He had copies of like astounding science fiction and amazing, that kind of stuff lying around. I was a hardcore Marvel fan in the 70s. Mm-hmm. So it was going to be science fiction or fantasy. And the way I came into War of the Worlds was, I know how many copies of that book I have, how many times I've bought it. But while I was thinking, look, excuse me. Oh yeah, I was talking about New York Public Library. New York Public Library had my grandfather's unit's World War I yearbook in the research archives.
Really?
Yeah, I was stunned.
Wow.
Because I got from the Middlebrook book that he was in the 109th Reserve Regiment. And I mean, this was 2016, 2017. I've got the pictures somewhere. But you go to the research area in the main building on 42nd and 5th. Mm-hmm. And you can like give them on a little card. Back then it was little cards and pencils. I'm sure now it's electronic. And I wrote down his unit and some other information. And you know that under Bryant Park is a research basement. And a little cart took my card down, and they send back up this ancient leather World War I era yearbook. And there's my grandfather. There's one of his brothers who actually was killed at Flanders, and some uncle that was in the 109th Reserve Regiment. Wow. And that took me to more so from there I was able to figure out where they were, where they trained, and all that stuff. And I, at some point, was sitting there thinking about the Somme and the battle, and something was like, can you imagine if the walkers showed up there and they were fighting, like German soldiers fighting the Martians? And I was like, oh God, I have to do that. And then that's what you were talking about before. And then I started thinking in terms of where we are right now as a country. Mm-hmm. Doesn't happen without 9/11. Regardless of how you feel, right? It was a massive polarizing event. Yes. There's a lot of things that happened from, stuff like FISA, stuff like carnivore, the way the government watches us, the nature of our politics, the way our politics has gone from, in the 90s, them being able to cut deals to by the end of the 2000s, there are no deals, right? We just don't do anything. We just don't do anything. It's all, well, I don't. I was thinking, how would this country have reacted if it had been an alien invasion? Right? Like if we couldn't handle what happened to us on 9/11, which was horrible, but it was like it was one day, right? What happens if there's a multi-day alien invasion? And then the other question that nobody's ever answered, to quote Jack Nicholson, what about those wonderful toys? They dropped dead on the battlefield. And they left those weapons laying around. And then you've got great guys like McKinley and the Tsar and Kaiser Wilhelm. What does Kaiser Wilhelm do with heat rays?
Interesting.
That was the kind of questions that I was asking.
That's interesting.
Plus, would McKinley have ever been elected? But that's another question. So
that wow. I never thought in that realm. I guess that's why you're the one who wrote the book.
Yeah. I became very hooked on alternate history. Yes, to me, and I love alternate history, like Neil Stephenson, his take on alternate history, S.M. Sterling, Harry Turtledove. His writing's very 80s, but he does some pretty interesting stuff with that.
Not too familiar with Turtledove, but what makes your work different from just fiction, from just a fan of fiction, a fan fiction of H.G. Wells?
Most of the fan fiction that I've read for H.G. Wells imitates his writing style.
Okay.
There's some great guys doing that. There's one guy I can think of off the top of my head, Mark Hood. Wonderful stuff. He writes short books the way Wells does, but he writes in that, I guess that's still technically Victorian, maybe Edwardian style of very, very flowy sentences, very packed. And I don't mean this as a criticism, but not the kind of character depth that a reader today expects. So the first thing I did is I'm very much writing my style, which is a little old-fashioned compared to some guys like Sanderson, but I'm writing more of what somebody buying a book today would expect. I also, most of the sequels I've read have pick up right after. I very deliberately go ahead 20 years because I want to see that aftermath. William Jennings Bryan is the president. He's more or less created the FBI a couple decades early, and boy, do they have more power than they did in the early days. You know, Hoover had to do that stuff when people weren't looking. These guys can just do it while everybody's looking. And the politics in overseas are very different. And like you said, although I do bring the aliens back, it's kind of like Walking Dead in that it's more about how we act because of the aliens. And in Walking Dead, I mean, the best stuff in Walking Dead, guys like Negan, was how did we react to having the zombies?
Right. Yeah. That's a great angle on it too. Now, are you building toward a larger universe, or is this going to be a contained series?
At the moment, I'm starting a new series. I need a break. I know the fans are going to hate that. I didn't end it, if I have any. Murder and Software.
You sound like me with the show. I mean,
okay, we have to have humility. I think it keeps you honest.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
The third book ends at a logical break point. There's no cliffhangers. I'm not Sanderson again, the way he ends some of the stuff in Stormlight Archive. But I needed a break from them. I also need to figure out where I am going with this. And I could go either way. Part of me wants to go with a greater universe. I'd love to fast forward another 20 years to what World War II or that universe's version of World War II would have looked like.
That would be really interesting, actually.
Yeah, because I have Germany totally in ruins. Sorry, fam. I was just there last year. But that's one thing. But I'm actually starting another series more because of my addiction to alternate history. I found another way to play with alternate history, and that actually goes back to an idea I had when I was in the Army that I decided to play with. So,
elaborate.
So
you sparked the intrigue. So go ahead.
So you've seen Highlander,
yes,
and you've probably seen the series.
Yes.
My biggest problem with Highlander is too many damn immortals.
Yeah, I agree.
The idea I had was for a single immortal.
Can I interrupt you 1 second?
Yeah.
What irritates me about it is the fact that in the movie there can be only one, and then with the series you have one in every episode.
Well, exactly, right.
You know,
and unless it's the guy from Fine Young Cannibals, it was annoying.
Yes, exactly.
And Joan Jett, she was good too. I like the idea of fewer immortals. I'll put it that way. I'm very much a comic book geek, and when John Byrne said there will only be one Kryptonian when he rebooted Superman in whatever that was, 84, I was cheering. Somebody came and took it back, of course, but I like that idea. I think that for your character to be special, they have to be special, right?
Agreed.
Like everybody gets bit by radioactive spiders, and it's kind of boring. So I have many fewer immortals, but my idea in that series is a single guy who is cursed. I put him in January 1200. He's born. I gave him Dogen, the famous Zen guy's birthday. He is at a certain point cursed to live forever, and he's just kind of trying to do his best. He has no superpowers other than kind of like the vampires in the movie with Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise, Interview with Vampire. I know it was at Lestat, where they like immediately regress to the way they were when they were changed. That's like the only thing going on with him, is that if he's seriously hurt, he will very rapidly, not Wolverine, but pretty rapidly regress to that. And it's an excuse to pick out points in history that I find interesting and play with them.
That sounds like a great idea.
Thanks. And the first book, I'm actually just, this sounds so salesy, just started a Patreon where I'll be sharing a chapter a week. There's parallel stories in the first book. He's in our present day dealing with a very interesting government in the US. And then he's at the same time thinking back to the 1500s in Germany when they burned a lot of witches.
Wow.
Because I heard a radio interview about somebody who just wrote a book about the witch burnings, and I'm like, I want to do that. And I can now. I'm the boss.
It's a great idea, though. It really is. I'm intrigued by it. I'd like to read something like that. I think that'd be really fascinating. So I want to pivot back to the World of Worlds stories.
You never ask an author about what he's currently writing; he will not shut up.
That's fine. That's the whole point of the show is for me to sit back and listen to you. So, so I just want to go back to the World of World stuff for a second. Now, so you have your timeline version of the story. What do you think about some of these remakes that have been coming out in the movies, especially the one recently that came out with what's his face?
Cruise.
Yeah, Tom Cruise.
I used to work in Jersey City. That was cool to see. I found it mostly inoffensive, that movie. So the one thing that gets me that people seem to miss when they remake it, my favorite is the one from the 50s.
Very good. I love that
57. I mean, they duct taped a romance to it because you had to. It was the 50s.
Yeah.
But they kind of kept to it, and the effects are stunning. You look at that movie, and you're like, my God, that was like 6 years before I was born. And I had to watch Lost in Space. But
wasn't bad. Lost in Space wasn't bad.
But the effects, I mean, you could see the tin foil on the robot.
You could see the tin foil on the lunar lander going.
Good point. But if you read the War of the Worlds, the original book, I don't know if any of these movies, I mean, Spielberg did to a certain degree, got the grittiness. And I will say what Spielberg did really well is the scene in the basement with the crazy guy where Tom Cruise is in there and I think his kids are with him.
Yeah.
That scene is in the original book, but the guy's a preacher who's just basically losing his mind, kind of like Contact, when they see that there's aliens, and a lot of the religious people are just like, it shatters their worldview because their view of religion is so small that they can't allow for space. It's like, well, if there's a single creator and he created this, why couldn't you have created that? But that I think he got right. Did you see the French one?
No.
There's a French show with that's another take on War of the Worlds that I think was a lot better. It was a series with 3 seasons, I think. Gabriel Byrne was in it, which automatically makes it good.
Yes, I agree.
But-
I like Gabriel Byrne. Yeah.
Yeah, the Martians, at one point, they have like robot dogs that look like the scary ones from the MIT lab running around with guns mounted on them. And they kind of got that. I don't know what I'm trying to say. The other thing is, do you know what War of the Worlds is really about? What H.G. Wells said it was about?
Well, that was my next question for you,
Okay.
actually, sir.
Oh, okay. So the aliens are the British Empire,
Mm-hmm.
and we are the colonies that Britain constantly invaded and took up. I think he might have been talking about the Philippines when he wrote the book.
Mm.
I should have looked that up this morning because I knew this would come up. But it's very much a metaphor about colonization and the way empires exploit colonies is what he put in there. And what both the 1957, 1958, and Spielberg movie do is they latch on a message at the very end about man conquering all. And I think there's even a little bit of a religious message in there that Wells would have been utterly appalled.
Mm.
He was very much against that kind of thing. And what the French series does is there's a couple points where they kind of stop and take a step back and at least acknowledge we would be doing this to somebody else if we had the chance. That is kind of human nature.
That's a great point. I don't have a follow up to that.
Yeah, sorry.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It stumped the host. That's great. That's fantastic. It's probably the worst thing in the world for a show. That and no shows. People who say they're going to be on the show and don't show up.
Oh no, that would be appalling.
But I'm not bitter.
Okay, no,
Not at all.
I don't know what I do.
No. Oh man. So when you say that sci-fi should reflect the real world, how far is too far before it stops being entertaining?
When it gets preachy, when it clubs you over the head with it, and I think that's the problem a lot of people have with some of the stuff on television is sometimes you feel like you're being preached at, and sometimes the message feels kind of like I said, they duct tape the romance to the 50s War of the Worlds. If you're going, if you're going to go into certain aspects of a character, they should be part of the story.
Yeah.
I do think Roddenberry did a good job with that.
I think he did too.
And I think Next Generation did a good job with that. I think DS9 did a good job with that. I don't know why I went to Star Trek. Can't imagine.
I'm a Trekkie, so that's
yeah,
okay.
yeah, okay. But I think it has to be in service. And another example to go back to Sanderson. I think Sanderson does this very well.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you look at read Stormlight Archive and Mistborn, he's very much writing, especially Mistborn has a very YA feel. He's dealing with identity, and deals with, like, Stormlight Archive has a lot of stuff with mental health in there, and he manages to weave it into every aspect of the plot and into even the magic system in a way that it's in service of the story, and it teaches you at the same time.
Right.
I think where it goes too far is when it feels like there's an executive somewhere. They're saying, okay, your cast has to have one of these and one of these and one of these and one of these. That's when I think it's going too far.
Agreed. I agree with you. You got to cast the right person for the right role. You can't do it to meet quotas.
Right.
And that just doesn't work.
And if you want to have something that with that again deals with a certain audience, then write that. And then it's on the tin and people can watch it or not.
Exactly. Now, with your background in military, working with radar technology and programming and all of your technical experience, oftentimes you come across a lot of science fiction that just seems very unrealistic. What do you think most writers are getting wrong about technology or warfare?
I have to think of somebody who's getting it wrong that I've read recently, and I can't think of anyone. What did Frankfurter say? I don't know what it is, but I know it when I see it. I think technology has to have some believable aspects to it. I tried really, really hard. And one of the reasons why I went back in the past is I went to technology I understand. Because when I got in, my stuff seriously had vacuum tubes in it. There has to be a believable basis and a consistent basis to it. Andy Weir, Project Hail Mary, does this to the utter nth degree, where it's believable. I think internal consistency. If you're going to say there's a particle that gives you superpowers, then be consistent with the way that works. If you're going to talk about technology like I tried to, do some basic research, for crying out loud, at least read a couple Wikipedia footnotes and make sure you're in the right zip code. I'm trying to think of somebody who got something flat out wrong, and I can't think of anybody right now. I mean, Star Trek is notorious. My God. The gobbledygook. But you know what? It doesn't bother us, right? Because if you're watching a good Star Trek, like Strange New Worlds, I think it was one of the best things they've done in years. There's an internal consistency to the way they talk about technology and the way stuff works, right? And if they start blathering about tachyon particles, you understand that, oh, so we're doing a time travel thing, huh? You know.
I know. I'm actually binge watching the original series right now. So I just got to episode. I just got to season 3. The first episode of season 3 is probably. I'm sure I'm not the only Trek fan that will admit this, but the episode called Spock's Brain, has to be the worst episode ever. I think even the actors. I remember reading someplace that the actors were even embarrassed to be working on this one particular episode.
I vaguely remember it.
Yeah, so,
I had all the novelizations; those were really good. That the short storyizations with James Blish; those are so good.
Yeah, those are fantastic. I've seen those, and a lot of the the word just the term for it just popped out of my head. The books, the individual books that came out in between, you know, the original series and the motion picture and all that stuff, the in between stuff. Some of that stuff is fantastic and really well written and taken care of. But there are elements where things do go a little bit strange, you know, to say the least. Now, and that I think kind of goes along with where I was getting with you know, technology. You know, how does somebody just put on a little helmet here and all of a sudden have the ability to perform a surgery where you're removing somebody's brain bloodlessly, no injuries, no cuts, no.
I mean, that's a good point. Like I said, I'm blanking right now because the guy I'm reading right now, Adrian Tchaikovsky, just gets it so right. And before that, I read like 6 Gibson books in a row. So, and William Gibson, of course, is the god of this stuff.
Yes.
But yeah.
A little while ago, we started talking about government and politics and things in these nature related to the idea of a war of the worlds type situation, especially in your books, going back to the World War I period. What do you think most people don't understand, or people at least misunderstand about how governments actually respond to threats?
I don't know if they don't understand. Everything is an excuse to give up our freedom, and I guess what they don't understand. First of all, they're not automatically smarter than you because of the job they have. They don't automatically know what's going on. I think that, without getting too fluffy and putting on my my flower child gear, power corrupts, and I think that one of the biggest problems with our system is very optimistically designed, and they don't understand that with every iteration, a little more power is grabbed, and the next guy, it's always been a guy, I can say that, is not going to give up the power that the guy before him grabbed, even though he condemned it while he was running. Yeah. I mean, what I saw in the military was, to a man, to an individual person, most people were trying to do their best. But groups of people really fail.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I tried to convey. Honestly, I'm at a point where I wish I could go back and rewrite parts of the first book. And that's the problem I have, is you go back and you look. And I actually think I went kind of soft. because I wrote a lot of that book in 2019, and I thought I better finish this before everything changes back. But the people in power are reluctant to level with us. I feel I think, and very much reluctant to admit mistakes. And that's a lot of what I go into it with, especially in the third book, is that people make mistakes and they don't want to admit that, and they don't want to level with us.
Which just compounds the problem to begin with.
Right. And I don't know if it's an actual quote or not, but I think it was Franklin that said that those that are willing to give up freedom for security deserve neither. I think that's constantly attributed to Franklin, and I read recently that maybe he never said it, but it's an awesome quote. He should have.
Yeah, I agree. But if it was him or wasn't him, it's an absolutely true statement.
Yeah,
absolutely true.
Yeah.
In the little bit of time that we have left, Werner von Braun, before he died, said that the next big deception is going to be alien invasion. What do you think about that? Is there more things in heaven and earth that are dreamt of in our philosophy?
I think statistically there's something out there. I do think that. I think the problem is the distances.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel about Area 51 and whether or not aliens have already gotten here the way I feel about the Kennedy assassination. If there really was a conspiracy, but then by now we would have heard it, because it's really hard to keep a secret.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the biggest answer I have to Oliver Stone is, it happened before I was born, for crying out loud, and I'm ancient, and we've never heard of it. The same idea with all this stuff that was supposed to be going on in Area 51 in the 50s, and we've never heard about it. And even Trump said he's going to release all these files, and they have supposedly released everything, and I haven't heard anything.
Nothing that we didn't already know.
Right. So that said, I don't think we're alone. I think the biggest problem is, and Project Hail Mary, I don't know if you've seen it.
I've heard of. I haven't seen it yet.
The movie is utterly astonishing, and the book is laying on the shelf over there behind my advertisement. Part of what he deals with is the distances, and that faster than light travel probably isn't going to happen. And the problem is, if there is somebody out there in Betelgeuse or Sirius, we finally just got pictures of Pluto, I think 2 days ago, right? And it took 9 years for a probe to get out there.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the end of our solar system. And something that could go as fast as possible without any worry about environment or crushing people with the momentum. And The Expanse is another really amazing series.
Yes.
Where they talk into a lot of the mechanics in the books, the mechanics of what it takes just to go a couple times the speed of sound, the stress on the body.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the only reason why we haven't met anybody yet, is just you can't get there from here.
I agree with you. But what do you think about government using something like a staged...
Okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood the question.
No. It's a follow-up, really.
I think the government will stage a lot of things. I think why not? Again, read my third book. I could see that, and I think the other mistake that people think about government, to go back to your question, is they think of the government
mm-hmm.
as this unified single entity. Just the same way when people talk about the deep state. My problem with that is you're acting like there's one intelligence. There's some super mind, like MODOK, that's controlling all of this. No, there's a whole bunch of people with their own agendas. So is it possible that somebody stages something or just leaks a press release about something to cover up for something else?
Mm-hmm.
They do that. And now, like I just said, and then you have a bunch of people that don't want to admit mistakes. And they're like, yeah, that was really horrible. He shouldn't have done that. But if we admit to it, we're going to reveal all this other stuff. Right. And I think that's the other thing is that people, you have to understand systems and how groups work to understand that, once the government got past 13 guys hanging out in Philadelphia, stuff got out of control.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
But do you think that we have the technology today to actually stage, say, example, a War of the Worlds type false flag event? Do you think that we have that kind of technology?
I think we've had it for years.
I'm talking about outside of like Project Bluebeam and all that stuff. I'm talking about actual physical, tangible technology.
I think we probably could do a credible version. And I think people have proven themselves to be remarkably gullible.
This is true. This is very, very true, my friend.
Yeah.
Very, very true.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, my goodness. So let's start to wrap this thing up here. If someone never read your work, what's the one idea you hope sticks with them after they do?
That a single person can make a significant difference if they're focused on doing the right thing. If I've got a consistent theme in these first 3 books, that's it.
That's great. That's great. All right. And who is someone that you respect right now, and what are they doing that inspires you?
I mentioned Adrian Tchaikovsky a couple of minutes ago. The guy is writing 4 or 5 astounding books a year.
I thought you were going to mention your sister.
Oh, I'm sorry, Amy. I just went down and did that wedding thing, and I got to say, man, she owes me. No, I mean, my sister definitely. I have to say, I think it's a good point. And her banging out 3 or 4 books a year too is pretty impressive. Yeah. Sticking in my field, Adrian Tchaikovsky, again, banging. I'm reading one of his books right now. It's like, giving me ideas and inspiration. When I write, I read because I want a voice other than mine in my head to keep me out of the loony bin. Another amazing author, Ray Naylor, Naylor, who's doing amazing work with mixing AI and consciousness with human meat space. We just read a really book about a superpowered octopus, really, and how smart they really are.
Wow.
That's the 2 names I can think of right now.
All right. Well, outstanding.
3 if you count Amy Clipston, Amish Romance.
All right. Amish Romance. Okay.
Hot and sweaty hand holding. Yep.
All right. Well, I can understand the whole sister thing because I have my sister. My sister's younger than me, and we don't challenge each other as far as writing goes, but we challenge each other in the kitchen. Oh. So my sister is a phenomenal cook. I'm a better cook.
Italian.
Yeah, of course. But she's good. I'm better.
Well, okay.
So, but no, she's listening. That's why. So she challenges me. She'll make something on a weekend, and she'll send me a picture of it, and I'll be like, "All right, challenge accepted. I have to do it better." Right. And of course, I have to go over and above, and I don't care if I put my bank account to a negative balance to do it. I will do that. Yeah. So I understand the whole appreciating the sister thing for the motivation and the drive to do better, and that's great. I appreciate that. All right, sir, where can people go to find out more about you and your work?
EricGoebelbecker.com. If you get close to the spelling and type that into a search engine, it should get you to it. From there, you'll find all my stuff. I have an email list where I feature a lot of specials from other authors. I talk about other authors on there. And from there, you'll find my Patreon. If you want to read some pretty, in my opinion, cool fantasy, just started a Patreon.
Hey, do me a favor. Can you send me the link to the Patreon? So I'm going to make sure I put it in the show notes.
Okay, I will. Yeah, that's brand new. I literally put it up on Monday. So
yeah, whenever you have a chance, send it over. I can always edit. I can edit anytime, really. So whenever you're ready.
All right.
Well, that's great, man. I really appreciate the conversation tonight. This was fantastic.
Yes.
And I really enjoy. I love sci-fi, and to actually talk sci-fi with someone who knows sci-fi is fantastic.
Sure.
And I'm really looking forward. I know you said you sent over a copy of a PDF of the book. I'm really looking forward to getting into that.
Okay.
And then maybe what we can do is, when I get through it, I'll reach out to you and you come back on the show again, and we can actually talk about specifics of the book and have a great little conversation over that. I think that'll be a lot of fun. And maybe I'll start a Patreon and we'll do it behind the paywall. What do you think?
Okay, there you go. Yep.
We'll see. We shall see.
Yep.
All right. Well, Eric, thank you so much. I really do appreciate this. I'm going to throw you backstage really quick. I'm going to wrap up the show, and I'll catch up with you right back there. And just give me 5 minutes.
Sure.
All right. Eric Goebelbecker, thank you so much, sir. I really do appreciate it. I'll talk to you in a few minutes. All right, folks. Great conversation. I'm telling you, Podmatch, you got to get on Podmatch. If you are a host or you're a guest, get on Podmatch. This is the kind of quality stuff that you get from them. Great stuff. Really, I really do appreciate this conversation. It was a lot of fun. And I was really looking forward to talking to him tonight, too. This is like a double bonus for me. So I really appreciate it. And I want to give a special shout out, of course, to our producing team, Wayne Rankin, Rosanna Rankin, Carolina Jimenez, Marissa Lee, and, of course, the inestimable anonymous Angela. Folks, these guys donate their time, their talent, and their treasure to help put these shows together. And we really couldn't do a lot of the stuff that we do without them. And what we do is we follow the value for value model, which basically means that if you're receiving anything of value from the show, we're asking you to return that value to us in the form of a donation. And that donation can be your time, your talent, or your treasure, or all three. If you have the means and ability to do that, that'd be fantastic. Now, if you would like to find out more ways about how you can help the show out and support it, just head over to our website, joerooz.com/support. That's joerooz.com/support. And you can find out all the neat little ways and little things that we have that you can help us out. You can do a one-time donation, any amount. You can do a recurring donation, any amount. You can also sign up to be one of our producers. The associate producer is $17.76 a month. The producer is $18.36 a month. And, of course, executive producer is $25 a month. All the producers get the shout-out on every show, just like you heard. Get included in show notes and emails, everything that gets sent out from the show. And the other added perk is, as an executive producer, if you've got the guts to do it, you get to book time on the show and hang out with us for an hour. So we have one of our executive producers does that, Wayne Rankin, and he'll be with us next Wednesday night and talk about some really interesting things that he's been working on. And so we're very, very excited for that. And it's always a lot of fun when Wayne comes on the show. We have these really weird, wide-ranging conversations like Sasquatch and stuff like that. And I think this time he wants to talk about preparedness, which is very, very important. So come on by and check it out next Wednesday night. So that's the way you can do it. Check it out, joerooz.com/support. All right. How about some final thoughts here? All right. Science fiction. Science fiction oftentimes gets labeled as an escape, but tonight proves it might be one of the most honest lenses that we have, because when you strip away the aliens, the technology, the spectacle, what you really have left is us, how we react under pressure, what we're willing to give up for safety, and who gains power when fear takes over. Whether you agree with us or not on our conversation here tonight, the idea alone is worth sitting with, because the real story was never really about the invasion. It's really more about what happens after the invasion. So check out his books to find out exactly what we're talking about. All right, folks. Well, I think that should just about do it for us for tonight. Really appreciate you guys being here. Special thank you to our guest, Eric Goebelbecker. And I said it wrong, I know it. I see him nodding his head in the backstage there. Goebelbecker. There we go. Don't forget to head over to the website, joerooz.com. Leave us a message. Let us know what you think. Any comments, questions, cares, or concerns, email me directly, info@joerooz.com. All right, folks. Listen, make Texas independent again. Go podcasting. Keep a steady stride. And keep talking, folks. God bless you. You have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.